Good morning and welcome to Conversations with Buddy. We are recording this episode at the Corbin University this morning here in Salem, Oregon. We drop a new podcast every Friday morning with a new story that will impact someone. We hope that someone is you. Thank you for the listeners each week that take the time to hear the stories of our guests. We really appreciate you. Please take a moment and subscribe to our podcast, give us a review, and share this podcast with your friends, family, or co-workers on your favorite social media platform. We want to get these messages out to the people and impact the world one testimony at a time. Just a quick announcement. There's a men's conference coming up here in Salem on June 10th called the Pacific Northwest Men's Conference. There's probably going to be around 2,000 men there, so come join us. The list of speakers are amazing. Click on the link, pnwmc.org, and join us. This morning, I'm grateful to introduce you my guest and friend, Jesse Barnes. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you here. I've known you for a little while, a few years.
Yeah, about 7.
About 7. Time flies, man.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had, well, a couple kids since we first met.
2 and then 1 on the way. Final one.
Yeah. you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it final.
You're going to make it final. That's the final deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just dive in a little bit. I'm just going to kind of introduce what I know about you, and then we're going to dive into what I don't know about you, and we're going to learn about you.
Okay.
I always say every time I interview somebody, whether I know them really well or not, I always learn something new. So not sure what it's going to be, but I'll learn something.
Sure you will.
Okay. So, Jesse, you're married to a lady named Allie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How long have you guys been married?
8 years. 8 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got 2 girls, 1 on the way,
Mm-hmm.
Olivia, McKenna.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The new one on the way, I'm learning for the first time. Well, I know you guys were pregnant, but give me the story.
Yeah. So we were talking about it on the way in here, but yeah, November we were kind of just discussing. You know, I've always wanted a boy, but I can't really imagine having anybody else except for my 2 little girls, and like they're my little girls, right?
Yeah.
They're healthy, and I was happy, and you know, I still am. I'm just like, you know what? I don't need any more kids. You know, Allie and I were talking, and like, okay, well, you know, we're good with the 2 girls, you know. And there's a lot of selfish reasons why most men want boys, you know, especially when you're a sports fan, you know, or
Totally.
or you just want, you know, like, man, I have a sister, right? And I have no brothers. So this is the last Barnes in my entire family, right? Little things like that. But then I got to thinking back in November when we were debating, I was like, that's such a selfish reason, you know, like, you know, I want, you know, someone to carry on my last name. It's like, yeah, you know, whatever. Like that's all in vain. And I'm just super happy with my 2 little girls. So I went into Salem Urology and I was like, all right, I'm going to go get my vasectomy appointment scheduled. Yeah. Like, yep, you're a good candidate, and come back in a month in December and we'll make it final. And I called Allie on the way home. I said, all right, I'm a good candidate. And December I set the date, and she goes, all right, and I'll never forget, she said, all right, well, you're useless to me now, and as a joke. And I said, oh, okay. And then
that's hilarious.
The next morning we found out we were pregnant. Yeah.
That's funny. God had a different plan for you guys, apparently.
Let's see, it was like 4 a.m. Allie was like, she was super hot. Like that night going to bed, she was just like super like hot, just like, what the heck's going on? I feel like it's burning in here. I'm like, no way, I'm freezing. It's, you know, November. And then 4 a.m. she woke up and she showed me the test. And I woke up kind of like, oh, it's a little bit too early. You know, I'm used to my girls waking up early. And I thought it was a COVID test, and I was freaking out. And I was like, get away from me. I'm not trying to get COVID.
Yeah.
I'm going to go quarantine. And she's like, what? I was like, dude, I don't want COVID. And she was just like, almost like, wait, okay. She's like, she felt hurt for a second. She's like, you don't want to have a kid with me? And I was like, no. I didn't know what was happening, but I was freaking out because obviously I was just like, I'm not trying to get COVID again. But it was a baby, and I was super excited, and we told the girls. So can't wait. Due in June, late June.
Yeah.
We picked out the name, you know, Blake Matthew Barnes. So
Blake Matthew Barnes.
Yeah, Blake Barnes. I figured, you know, it sounds good, you know. Now batting, number 3.
I was going to say, he's a professional athlete,
yeah.
plays at Oregon State.
Yeah.
Yeah, World Series.
Yeah.
The whole deal.
Yep. He'll thank me later.
Yeah. Okay, so what I learned about you is you were born on a Marine base. Your dad was in the Navy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that about you. We'll talk about that in a moment because I want to hear what that looked like. As you grew up, you went to Oregon State. You're a Beav. Go Beavs.
Yeah.
Do you love football more or baseball more of Beavers?
This last year it was probably football. When we win the World Series, College World Series, probably baseball. No, I like them both. I mean, they both have a special place in my heart only because, you know, in high school I played basketball, football, and baseball, and I loved all three. Whichever season it was, I was my favorite. But baseball is just good to be outside, you know, especially in Oregon when you don't get very much vitamin D. Just being outside and, you know, smelling the fresh air and just hearing the pop of the ball in the mitt, you know, it's just fun, you know. And the football games, of course, are a once a week event where it's like, you know, you only get like, you know, 4 or 5 home games a year. So it's special, you know.
Totally.
You know, but I don't know. I like them both.
Yeah. Cool. So you went to Oregon State. What did you graduate with? What degree?
Business with a minor in speech communications and marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yep. So moving forward, you got into real estate. You are a licensed real estate agent, broker. Yeah. You work for a property management company as well. You love investing in real estate, and would I say businesses as well?
Yeah, I'm right now in the thick of looking at different business opportunities. My main goal is just to be able to say like, hey, I want to take this week off and go chaperone my kids, you know, school event, you know, outdoor school or whatever it was like when I was a kid, you know, without having to worry about like I'm giving up a paycheck. You know, I never want to get to that point. So trying to just find different avenues of income, whether it's real estate or businesses. Yeah.
So that thing of multiple streams of income would be a cool thing.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. Let's start with kind of where you grew up at. So you grew up, you were born on a Marine base, and your dad was in the military. Tell me about the upbringing and being in a military family. I'd love to hear that. And I don't think I actually knew that about you.
Yeah, so it wasn't really like a military family. It was more so like my dad. So to back up this story, I guess, my mom, I'm half Korean. And my dad was from Bend, Oregon. He's just like a European mutt, right? Just
European mutt.
Right, with just it's like every other, you know, Caucasian, right? Yeah. So he grew up in Pendleton, had a father who, you know, was a police officer, but, you know, had many different women, you know, didn't really have a good stable household. You know, he was, you know, homecoming king, you know, Pendleton running back, you know, shortstop, you know, but he, you know, would come home after games and, you know, take care of his younger siblings because he didn't really have, you know, people doing that for him. So he kind of had to grow up quick, right? After he graduated high school, he either could go to Blue Mountain Community College in Pendleton or he could join the service. So one day he just said, hey, Dad, I'm leaving, you know, on Monday. And he's like, all right, see ya. And so he took off. He had an assignment to Italy, and one of his, I guess, recruits with him had Okinawa, Japan. And he said, please, my wife's family's from Italy. Can we swap assignments? So they swapped, and my dad ended up going to Okinawa, Japan. There, my mom's side, she grew up on a farm, super remote, like to the point where she didn't have a school. She grew up on a farm with her dad died when she was like 3. She was one of like multiple siblings, like 6 or 7 siblings, which was pretty frowned upon in South Korea.
Right.
And she this is like the most famous story of my mom in terms of like how poor she was. She tells me, she goes, yeah, I was so poor that I would chew it. Like the nearest market was miles down the road. So she would walk down the road and like once a week buy 1 stick of gum. And that was like her treat. And she would chew it and then every night stick it on her wall on the floor near her bed where she'd sleep and then chew it the next morning until she could get a new stick the next week. So she grew up, which explains a lot of the way my mom is, right? Everything's about like giving to her kids because she didn't have that to the point where we have to like force her to like accept nicer things or, you know, do like, you know, every time we go out, she's like, why are you spending money? She just, so some like, yeah, if my mom's listening to this, we just don't have to not tell her sometimes, you know, when we do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But she didn't grow up a believer. Neither did my dad. Kind of did, but he obviously growing up the way he did, he didn't have very positive influences.
Yeah.
And he ended up. My mom one day was like, "Mom, I'm getting off the farm. I'm gonna go visit my friends who are married to military members in Okinawa, Japan. I don't know any Japanese, but I'm gonna go visit my friends. And I just want to get away." So she left. Met my dad at the local, I don't know, watering hole, at the Marine base there. They met. My dad asked her out. She said no. My dad kept going back there like every night. Saw her again one night and asked her again. And my mom's finally like, okay, fine. She ended up staying longer than the month, got married. I was born on the Marine base. But while she was pregnant with me, a lot of her women friends were Christians and believers, which when you don't have anyone that speaks your language, you're going to do anything you can just to be around people that are culturally, the same as you. Like if we were in, a different part of the world where they didn't have burgers and pizza and sports, me and you would probably be like, Jesse, like these guys aren't the same like belief as us, but they speak our language, and I just want to like be around people that talk like us. And so my mom would go to these Bible studies just so she could just be around other Korean women, right? And one night she was supposed to go to a Bible study, and she was very pregnant with me, like 8 months pregnant. And right before she's leaving, she gets the worst pain she's ever had in her life. She, looking back, she says it was worse than actual giving birth, probably because she also had an epidural and had pain meds and so yeah. But still, she's like, it was so painful. I crawled to the phone, and for some reason, instead of calling the local military base 911 or the hospital, she ended up, for some reason, something felt like she called her friend, said, "Hey, I can't make it to Bible study. I something's not right." So she's like, "Something's not right with me. I'm in like a lot of pain." And the woman who was hosting the Bible study at the time basically said, "You know what? I believe that it's the enemy trying to keep you away from, knowing Jesus." So she prayed for my mom over the phone, and immediately the pain went away. She ended up giving her life to Christ that night at the Bible study. And then from there, my mom's been essentially the rock of my family in terms of like why me, my father, my sister, and many others actually in my family are followers of Christ. And so, and then after that, my dad and my mom moved. After my dad's 4-year assignment, I was 1 year old, and moved back to Bend, Corvallis, and then the rest is history.
So just to clarify, you were born in Okinawa, Japan.
On the Marine base, yeah.
On the Marine base, and you're there for 4 years. So at 4, you moved to...
No, my mom was there for a couple of years, and I on the third or fourth year of my dad's assignment, they had me, and then I was only there for, maybe 9 months to a year, maybe a little bit over, and then we moved back to Bend. My dad ended up getting his college paid for, so he went and took classes at Oregon State, worked the night shift as a security guard at Hewlett-Packard on low-income housing with me and my mom and my dad, and my dad ended up working his way up Hewlett-Packard, all that.
And Maria is obviously a younger sister.
Yep.
What's the difference in age?
3 years, yeah.
Okay. Yep. You guys are pretty close?
Yeah, we're pretty close, yeah.
You guys seem really close.
Yeah, we are.
How long have your parents been married now?
Ooh, since 89 or 88. So, I don't know.
So they've been married for...
Too early for math.
30. So I got married in 91, so about 33, 34 years. Yeah. Hey, when did your dad graduate from high school, from Pendleton?
Ooh, I'm going to just take a guess, anywhere from 84, 85 maybe.
It's funny.
Why?
Well, I grew up on that side of the mountain too, so I had friends in Pendleton, and so I graduated in 86, so I probably know your dad or something.
Really?
Yeah. What's your dad's first name?
Dean Barnes.
Dean Barnes.
Yeah.
He played football?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pendleton Buckaroo, yeah.
See if he knows any Crook County Cowboys from Prineville.
Oh, I'm sure he probably does.
Yeah, you should mention that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, so you go to Oregon State, and so go take us through that journey, and then how you met Allie. That's the next phase here we can talk about.
Yeah. Well, went to Crescent Valley High School in Corvallis. Ended up applying to like Western Oregon, Seattle Pacific. Point Loma, a couple of different colleges in California,
Yeah.
you know, but Oregon State was the cheapest option in terms of that. And I was, at that time, I was helping lead worship at Calvary Chapel, Corvallis. And so just my community was there. As much as I didn't want to be in the same town that I grew up in, it just made sense.
So you grew up at Calvary Chapel even as a kid?
Grand Avenue Baptist Church first, which is where I went to like preschool and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I ended up going to Calvary after transitioned to Calvary Chapel, Corvallis. There is a house there on campus called House of Charis, which is the girls' Christian house where there's, I'd say probably like 30 women, young women live there, and it's like a ministry of Calvary Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
I think they run that ministry. My sister was there, and again, she's 3 years younger than me, and I was a junior/senior. Yeah, junior, and then she was a freshman, and she had one of her roommates named Allie.
Huh,
and
interesting.
And then I asked my sister, "Hey, who's Allie?"
Who's that girl?
Yep, exactly. And then I guess the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too funny. I didn't know you grew up in Crescent Valley High School.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, by the way, have you ever watched the movie Jesus Revolution?
I haven't. It just came out probably a couple months ago, right?
Yeah, about a month ago. I highly recommend it. It really tells a story about Chuck Smith and the whole Calvary Chapel. It is a phenomenal movie, by the way. So definitely recommend watching it. So
yeah, I've heard that from many people.
Yeah.
I definitely will.
So when you were at Oregon State, did you play any sports? Loving sports, did you?
No, I didn't. I just ended up taking that more of like the recreational route, like just, going to Dixon, which is the local rec center there, and playing pickup ball and studying, and just doing that route and focusing on trying to just graduate as fast as I could. So
yeah. Growing up, what are some of the ahas, challenges growing up that you overcome that you can think that really makes you who you are today? I mean, we all go through life. We all have challenges. What are some of those pivotal moments in your life, Jesse, that makes you who you are today? Because everybody has a story. Everybody has a history. There's usually some pain in there. I'm not looking for just something authentic that you want to share that, maybe how your parents raised you. I know your mom is from South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad's from Pendleton. I can relate to who your dad is, the redneck from Eastern Oregon. But yeah, what does that look like? How'd that make you are who you are today, and just some pivotal moments?
Yeah. I think that when you're younger, if you were to ask me the same question probably like 5 or 7 years ago, before I even had kids, there would be less grace for my parents, right? And we all say that, like, I'm going to do it differently,
Way better than my parents.
Way better, so much better, yeah. They don't know how to do it, but looking at where my mom and dad both came from, they did the best they could. And there were, and a lot of it explains some of my thing. And where I come from also explains like who I am, in the sense that, like, for instance, when I start getting frustrated at something, the way I can react, I have to understand, like, I'm a big history guy, right? Like, if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it, right? I don't know who said that, but there's that quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
So knowing where, like the fiber of who I am and what my, lineage is and where I come from, and like the things that I grew up with and things that my parents grew up with, you have to be self-aware with that stuff, right? And so instead of like shutting down and like not explaining how you're feeling, which is, something that I'd be prone to doing, is you have to fight. And now, especially with 2 little girls, you cannot do that. And it's snapped me out of any possible, shortcomings with that I possibly could. They draw everything else out of you,
It's funny how that works.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Being a parent, I think I hear this a lot too, where, we look back and think of all the things our parents did wrong. As we grow older, and really when we have our own kids, we realize our parents did the best they could.
Mm-hmm.
There's a manual. You might call that manual the Bible to help, raise kids. But, knowing something and doing something, knowing how to implement that those are two different things. And just because you know something doesn't mean you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you get older, the humility comes as like, oh, maybe my parents did the best they could. I'm doing the best I can, and I fall short every day. And that humility, kids don't remember what you did wrong. They actually remember what you do right. And that's that's the grace of a kid. But as we get older, sometimes we lose that grace. I think you mentioned, in our early 20s, we're maybe more arrogant, cocky, more prideful.
Mm-hmm. As
we live longer life, the Lord allows challenges to come in our life to maybe bring some humility to our life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking to when I hear you say those things.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right when you say, what's right and wrong, but it's one thing to know it and one thing to do it. And I think it was the man in the Bible who had a son who was possessed, and he said, Lord, help me, And I think at one point Jesus said, do you believe? And he goes, I believe. And then he says, but help me with my unbelief. It's just funny because it's like, I know, but still help me do it, like I know what's right and wrong, but it's sometimes so hard to, and I think that's when, self-control is another thing that I'm reading in the book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Just stoicism and all that stuff. And it's just interesting. Like if you can't have self-control, then you can't, you're not fit to be a leader. Like if you have no self-control. But it's something that is, I'm very much into that right now.
How do you model self-control in your life, personally or professionally or both?
I wish I could say, I do it perfectly, but I don't. You have to, again, having kids or in a spouse too, that, calls you out on your shortcomings.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've had
Never
that
been
yet.
called out by my wife, man. I'm good.
Yeah. So they're the most honest critics. And so, and again, people don't know what they don't know. Like if you're doing something and you're so used to it, you don't know what you're doing wrong or right. And there's, I forget who said that, but you never know you're in shackles until you move. So like if you sit still and you've got chains on you, you don't know. But if you start walking away and you're like, whoa, what the heck's holding on to my legs and arms, And so it's the same thing. It's like if you're used to being the same way, undisciplined, cold, unforgiving, not gracious, not kind, if you're used to that, your level of normal is going to be other people's extremes of like, dude, that's beyond, that's not even like being kind. That's just blatantly rude, And so I'm not saying that like, that's like where things are at, but like, I'm always trying to take that baseline and lower it to where I thought what was normal and better is not good enough for me. Like I want to, be better. You know what I mean? So
I like that. You ever watch a movie? What is the movie? It's talking about the blind spots we are. It's a football movie. Blindside. Thank you. Gosh. So, who are those people in your life besides Allie, your wife, or your kids? Hey, Dad, why'd you do that?
Oh, yeah.
Who are those people in your life that hold you accountable to finding those blind spots that we don't see so you can be your better self that God's called you to be? Who are those people in your life?
Probably my mentor and, my boss, Mendel. He's the owner of the company that I'm operations manager for. We oversee, when I first started, we had about 400 units managed, and now we're at like 16, 17, 1,800-ish managed units throughout the Willamette Valley. And throughout the 8 years that I've been working there, he's been he's a good role model. He leads by example, but he'll call you out as well, whether you like to hear it or not. And it's good to hear it.
Mendel's a great guy. I don't know him well like you do, but I see him at the gym a lot. He's disciplined. He's got 6 kids, I think. 6.
Yep.
I know you guys have gotten up early in the morning, taking a drive over to the beach and go surfing like at dark 30.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. but the way I see him, and you also, Jesse, highly disciplined. Now, I don't know your daily ins and out, but it appears that you guys are highly disciplined. But for Mendel, shout out to Mendel, good job. He's a great leader. I mean, he actually, he's doing the thing. He's not really even talking about it. He's just doing. There's some people that love to talk about it, and you can see their Facebook stories, and it looks like they're doing amazing. In reality, they're not. Mm-hmm. I know Jesus had a name for those people, like the Pharisaic, the whitewashed tomb, and I'm calling myself out too. Sometimes I look like a Pharisee. I'm actually saying things I'm not doing. And my wife would call me out and say, hey, why don't you just not say anything and just go do it? Oh. And so learning that lesson, be a doer. Yeah. Be a doer of the word, be a doer. And I like the verse, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. It's one of those verses I preach to myself daily because I think I have something to say. I think what I have to say is important, but really in reality is just be a doer.
Yeah.
And Mendel's a doer. I think you're a doer. So keep being a role model specifically for your wife and your kids. So that's awesome. What is a lesson you've learned from your daughters? One lesson you can go, I'm sure there's probably many, but kids are pure. They're undefiled by the world and unstained, as like James talks about. They just say it how it is. And you and I, as we get older, we kind of tend to pretend or fake or not quite say it, but they just say it how it is. What's a lesson they've taught you? What's Olivia, 5?
Mm-hmm. McKenna, she's turning 6 here soon, and McKenna is 2.5.
Almost 3.
Yeah, they're about almost 3 years apart. Yeah. Let's see, man. Besides, how come you get to eat that and I don't? like no more. You've had too much sugar, and then they see me do it or Allie do it. It's like, yeah, you're right. If it's bad for you, it's probably bad for me.
It's funny. We wouldn't feed our kids what we feed ourselves.
Oh no, heck no.
Isn't that interesting?
Kids aren't supposed to have red dye number 40, but I can. Yeah.
No problem, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the hypocrisy is real.
It's interesting.
But I think, man, just like bringing out the tenderness in men, like especially with me, what's weird is they've taught me more about how I'm a husband more than how I'm a father, right? I feel like being a father for me came more naturally because it's like when you see your daughters, your own flesh and blood, it's just like protect, care, love, coddle, right? Like it's just natural when you see those sweet faces, right? But when Allie and I are having an argument or talking.
You guys argue? That's weird.
No, never.
Never. Yeah.
Nope. It's just heated debates. That's what we do. No.
Yeah, heated debates. Difference of opinions.
Yeah. The thought is, like I don't ever want my kids to see certain aspects and think that that's normal or okay, right?
Yeah.
So I think more than like what lessons they've taught me in terms of fatherhood, they've taught me more about like, and I think about this often, like even with, Blake on the way, like what kind of a dad and a father and a husband do I want him to be? Right? And for my daughters, like what do I want them to want in a man? Am I that? You know what I mean? Like someday, what are they going to long for in a spouse? Am I displaying that as a attractive quality? You see what I'm saying? So that's like it just, and it brings me to one of my thoughts of, like when people say, well, I'm not ready to have kids, or I'm not financially ready. I'm not ready to be married. I'm not financially ready to, split my money with someone else. You'll never be ready. And as Dave Ramsey said, like having, like, if you've got a spending problem, having more money will not solve that. Right. It's, it's a financial problem. It's a spending problem, right? More money's not going to solve that. And it's, but tying it back to, fatherhood, there's nothing that will prep you in life like just getting thrown in there in the fire, right?
Yeah.
Like you can sit there and train, but at some point you got to go play the game. You know what I mean? At some point, Tiger Woods can practice and practice and practice, but at some point he's just got to go out there and trust that his hard work is paying off. And so whether it's finances or maybe you're not feeling like you're mature enough, I promise you, like once you see that child, you're going to shape up real quick. It's just, there's a lot of things that you start noticing about yourself. Like, man, I thought it was great. That's because I didn't have to take care of anyone but myself,
Yeah.
It just brings out a lot of ugliness out of people, which is good,
Yeah. Yeah. There's no perfect time to have kids. I mean, mathematically, I can't afford to have kids. My grandma had 14 kids.
That's all?
That's all. I mean, 14 kids, and they're all, they all live great lives. Interesting. But we can't mathematically afford to have kids. We just have to jump in, like I said, and God works out the details. What is a lesson you want to teach your kids? Like, think of Blake. That's his name, right? Blake. Being born. You have 2 daughters. Maybe you're a little bit more tender with them. Blake come out. Hopefully there's tenderness there too. But, you've had 5, almost 6 years with Olivia, almost 3 with McKenna. Blake being born. What's a lesson you want to teach Blake as a growing man? He's not even born yet. We're talking about him being a man.
Yeah.
You can say, like, when he comes out, hey, be a man. Yeah. What's that look like?
Besides throwing a baseball, and besides at football, no. I would say the one thing that I really want to instill from the get-go is being a servant is the sign of a man, right? Jesus, for instance, the greatest king of all time, the greatest man of all time, right? I forget who said the quote, but Jesus served with the heart of a king, but led with the heart of a servant, right? So he was the king of all servants. He served people, he washed people's feet. He was the most selfless man. But as a king, he was, that's the way he ruled, So I want to make sure that my son knows that being a man isn't, shooting a gun, putting a chew in, like throwing a baseball 100 miles an hour. I want to make sure that he knows that. And I was listening to another podcast and someone said, like, you don't really become a man until you're responsible for something. A lot of other cultures, they have ceremonies like, oh, when you turn this age, you're officially a man or this or that. But like, when you're responsible for other people and you're taking care of them, first off, that I think was by nature, by design, God created serving. First off, get your eyes off of you, right? When you think that you've been shortchanged, and take a look around, drive downtown, for instance, and take a look at the streets, of Salem, like it's, but just instilling in my son, a caring heart, and serving other people. Taking care of other people, not just himself, because this world is very, about me, how I feel, like everything from like what news station, will feed my agenda and what I believe, what me, and so trying to combat that in this world is going to be tough. It's a challenge that I'm going to do my best.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea, we live in this world and we love, shooting guns and being guys and golfing. I know you're a golfer, and we love those manly things. But what you said is being a real man, a man of God, is really about how we serve people. And that the world doesn't say that, It's about more, me. I call it the Trinity of self, me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And that flesh battles daily between the flesh and the spirit, and really surrendering to the Lord, that I walk by means of the Spirit. And man, what a challenge. But you got your hands full because now you have 3 of them. Do you have a favorite Bible verse that you have shared with your daughters, maybe your son coming soon, that impact them?
That I can share with them. We're going through their like children's Bible right now, which is a bunch of pictures and like kind of like stories. And so they're trying to just learn the basics of it. And but one of my favorite stories that's like in the Old Testament that I will, like, because a lot of people, like, I know I've been super guilty of it, skipping through the Old Testament because it's just sometimes doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'd rather just go to the Gospels, and just skip ahead. But the story of Mephibosheth, you know, he was lame in his feet, you know, he was deformed. And the king asked him, hey, is there anybody that can bring me Mephibosheth, so I can basically, because of who his dad is, I want to honor that agreement that I had with him, that I would take care of his lineage if I conquered him and his kingdom, I would, because he's my brother. And so I made that promise with him. So he brings them, and his servants find Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth thinks he's going to be beheaded. So he goes there, probably head bowed, and says, what do you want from me? And he goes, I'm going to give you back your land, and you're going to eat with me and dine with me, not because, of what you've done, but who your father is. Like your father, I made that promise with him. And that story to me, because of who Jesus is, we get to sit at the table, not because of what we've done, but because of who our father is. And not only that, there's another cool word picture that I like to use is like when you're at the table, right? Like Mephibosheth's deformities under the table are not seen.
Right.
He's just another one of everyone else at the table, which is really cool, because when we're in the presence of God, we think that we're coming there with all this, baggage and stuff, but those deformities are hidden,
Yeah.
So things like that, I just love sharing stories, and can't wait till when they start being able to grasp that. But they both go. McKenna will be going to Cross Hill Christian next year with Olivia.
Yeah.
And they do a great job of, sharing, the basics and all that stuff of the Bible. But yeah, they've both got their little word picture Bible that we go through, of the whale and, the Good Samaritan and all those stories. But yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Let's just transition a little bit real quick.
Mm-hmm.
What is, when you think of investing in real estate, what's that look like to you? Where are you at right now? Today we're in 2023. The market's interesting. Yeah. Not a lot of inventory as an investor, real estate broker. Our prices, with inflation, everything it's just a little bit uneasy. People are uneasy. What would you say about where you're currently at, what the market looks like, where we're going? Should we be investing? Should we be buying, or should we not?
Anybody that tells you definitive answer is lying. And I'll say that because each person's situation, like for instance, if you're a really good saver, then I would say, yeah, you should invest. If you've got a little bit of extra money, invest in it, invest it. But if you've got a spending problem and you're tight on cash, then probably not. So giving generic advice is something that I probably don't recommend people do. Just like, oh, you my way's the best. Like, look at what I did, Well, also everybody and their moms made money in the last 3 years. So, buy crypto, buy houses, buy, businesses, buy whatever, buy Pokemon cards. It's just like, okay. But where I'm at, I've got some units in Arizona, and I'm looking at buying some businesses. And again, my main goal is to die and pass away and leave something to my kids that they can, look back and say like, man, like, where did this start? Did I great? Nope. Like right here, this guy decided I'm going to buy up some real estate. I'm going to buy up some businesses. And, that's, I just want to leave that to my kids. But for me, because let's be honest, in 30 years, I may not even be here, who knows, but hopefully, but by the time a 30-year mortgage is paid off, it's mainly for my kids to enjoy. When that's paid off, they're going to be reaping the benefits, right?
Yeah.
But my main goal is to, again, just have some revenue streams. And I don't like using the word passive because nothing truly in this life is passive. If, you gotta, real estate, you have to, be watching it and, doing your yearly evals. Because if not, you're going to realize, wait, when did this leak happen? It was 3 years ago, but you didn't know. And now you have to replace all the flooring, It's
passive income.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know I had to do something.
Yeah.
That is kind of a lie.
It is a lie. It is.
The grass still needs to be watered and fertilized. Last time I checked.
Exactly. And so trying to find your strengths, first of all. The only reason why I invest in real estate isn't because I feel like it's the only way and it's the best way. It's just the way that I'm comfortable with, because I've invested the last 8 years of my life working around real estate, investors, management, everything from the maintenance to the leasing to the evictions to it's just what I know, right?
Yeah.
So find out what you're good at, and, find a way to invest in something that you enjoy doing. Because if you hate doing it and you're just like, I'm going to just hire someone to do it, again, I don't know how profitable those, ventures are, but yeah.
Are you right now more interested in a business that brings cash flow, or rentals, or like real estate, apartment complexes that would bring cash flow?
I'm right now looking at businesses only because I'm looking at boomer businesses that like where boomers are retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, hey, it's a great business. Nothing really wrong with it. I'm just tired.
I'm tired.
Yeah. And that's just like, okay, well, I'm not, and I've got, some energy, So looking at those, trying to find owner carries where, they're like, well, I'll be your bank, and make the interest and you pay me. That'll be my retirement check every month.
Beautiful.
It's a win-win, and then if they ever want to get cashed out, you refinance the business, and there's options there, but they're out there. You just got to, the more you fish, the more you catch, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to put my lines in the water.
Yeah. Yeah. With rates being high, short-term rates, long-term rates, it is a great time to do owner financing, giving them what they want, which is a win. They get a monthly cash flow. And then when rates do come down the next, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whenever we refinance and pay them off. And maybe they do a 15-year contract because they don't want to pay a capital gains today or this year or next year. Mm-hmm. So it's just a win-win deal. I love the word win-win. I never do real estate or investing in a win-lose. Whether I win, they lose, I lose, they win. It must be win-win. And if you really do that and honor people, it's amazing when people do that. That's really cool. So,
yep.
Well, bro, this is fun, man. I love hearing your story. Different perspectives. You're a younger guy than me. You're 33?
34.
34.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a young guy, young man, still hungry. You get a little older, sometimes you kind of lose a little bit of the edge of that drive. I still have it, but definitely don't want to do what I once did when I was in my 30s. It is definitely different.
Yeah.
Really harnessing that energy and, putting it to good use when you have the energy. That's really awesome.
Yep.
Well, let's do this. Let's, in this way, things I think about is, what is Jesse most proud of? And if somebody wanted to reach out to you and just talk to you about, hey, what's it like to buy a business, to buy real estate? Could I work with you, Jesse? I like you. I think I trust you because I think you'd give great advice. I like Dave Ramsey, but I do think that he does one size fits all.
Yeah,
and of course. And I couldn't agree more. Like, for somebody, no, it absolutely doesn't make sense to buy a home right now. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Or for you, you absolutely should buy a home, and here's why. But yeah, how would we wrap up this here? What you're most proud of, and then how do people connect with you? How do they figure out who you are? Where do you live? What do you know? What do you own down in Arizona? Stuff like that.
Yeah, we invested in Tucson because Phoenix. So my wife and I moved away from Salem about a year and a half ago, just because we were wanting a fresh start. Whether it be political reasons or just wanting to hit the reset and get away from the noise of the inner circle. Having input on stuff, and we went there and it just wasn't for us. We went there for about 6-7 months. I don't even remember. Moved to Gilbert, Chandler, Arizona, about 15 minutes outside of Scottsdale. It was just super superficial, like just not our people. We're more of barbecues and, ball games, and they're more of like, get your, Gucci purses out and your nice polos and come out and drive your cars. And it was just, wasn't our fit. And it was really hot. Although I enjoyed the heat, every night I was in the pool like at 10 p.m. and it was still 105 degrees at 10 p.m. and it was just by myself in the pool. But it was pretty brutally hot. But if you didn't get your stuff done by 9 a.m., you're screwed, But we moved back just because, as much as there's things we don't like, this is our community, So we moved back in Salem, and we love the community here. But what I'm most proud of, again, probably my family. Not probably, definitely my family. My kids, my wife, proud of who my wife is, what she believes and stands up for, and her. It's just funny. Like, a lot of the things that I enjoy and like loved about my wife, like her tenderness, her kindness, her meekness, which again, meekness is not weakness, is not. The people get those two confused, you know. Those types of things are the things that like she can sometimes can get, you know, including myself and our kids can like abuse that about her. Like, oh, she'll let it slide. Oh, she's, you know, and, so those are things that like I have to realize, like her strengths and what we love about her are also things that I can take advantage of, which I have to be careful, you know, and even the kids too, you know, they're like, oh, I'll ask mom, not dad, you know, or it's just classic. But I'm so proud of, you know, her and who she is and what she stands for and what she believes in and how she leads by example with our girls, you know. She always tells me, she goes, I just sometimes have this guilt, you know, I'm like, I feel like I'm just a so-so mom, a so-so mortgage advisor, a so-so daughter, a so-so, you know, wife. And I'm like, no, you know, what you're doing, you know, they see that, you know. I'm very, very proud of her.
Yeah. She needs to hear that on a daily basis. I think our wives do.
Yeah.
Be encouraged daily, because you're right. We can just take it for granted. The law of familiarity breeds contempt.
Yep.
And so practicing gratitude, encouragement, love.
Yeah.
Hey, what a concept. Well, as we wrap up, Jesse, how do people contact you? They loved your story. They want to hear more about who Jesse is. You're a young man with a family, leading well. Not perfect, but well. How do they get a hold of you?
Probably in this day and age, you can't really hide from anybody. So you should just Google Jesse Barnes, Salem, Oregon, and you'll probably find more than you want to know about me. But my email is Jesse Barnes Investments. I know it's kind of long, but Jesse Barnes Investments at gmail.com. I would give my cell phone out here, but there's a lot of weirdos out there, and I don't know how many listeners are out there. But I'm happy to meet with people.
Sure.
I have social media, but I don't utilize it so much where I'm posting every day. I just post things that I'm most proud of, which when you go there, you'll see things about my family, a couple things about real estate and Beaver stuff. That's
Go Beavs. Come on.
That's about it. You know?
I love it. Simple life, keeping it really, really simple. Dude, I really love this. Really appreciate you sharing your heart. What's really most important to you. We all need to hear that. It is our family. You know, God, wife, kids, and really making that our primary ministry.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate your transparency, and I just want to say thanks to all the listeners out there this week and every week that you guys come on, you listen. I pray that it impacts you in a positive way. I also pray that you will share it with somebody that will impact. And again, we don't know who it's going to impact, but we know that God gets the glory in this. So, Jesse, thanks for sharing your story, that God does get the glory in your life. So, thanks again. Absolutely. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, buddy.
You bet. Bye.